This just in, Brie Larson auditions for movies. Welcome everybody to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes, that's right. Brie Larson has auditioned for movies, and sometimes she doesn't get the job. Breaking news. Breaking news. We're going to talk about that just to open the thing here. James and Lacey with me as always. Yeah, so I'm sure by the time this airs, there's tons of articles out there saying Brie Larson has auditioned for a Star Wars movie.
Hateful YouTube videos.
Yeah, and it's going to be really positioned as though this just happened and that, is she going to be in the Taika Waititi movie? Is she going to be playing Rey's cousin? Is she going to be playing, all these things are going to be coming up in these articles. But the truth of the matter is, she started this YouTube channel. We were neck and neck for a while with her in subscribers for the first 3 minutes of her channel launch. And then she passed us. Left us in the dust. So we need you to subscribe to us on YouTube, please. We gotta catch up to Brie Larson. And she just in passing kind of just said, she was asked by, I don't know who she had on, but he had said, I auditioned for Solo. And I don't know if it was for Lando. It was an African American gentleman. I don't know if he was he got beat out by Donald Glover, which, you know what, I'd put that on my resume. But anyway, he said, I auditioned for Solo. And she said, I auditioned for Star Wars. I also auditioned for Hunger Games and the Terminator reboot. And that was it. And I'm sure people have since run away with that again, by the time this airs. But what do you guys make of that craziness, if that's even what we want to call it?
Lacey?
I don't think it's that crazy. I remember I saw a couple of people tweeting about it, and I was like, okay, so she auditioned. Like, they said a ton of people auditioned for Rey back in the day, from like Jennifer Lawrence after the Hunger Games, all these different people. So it could have been during that. I mean, it was just weird to me because it's like saying that you didn't get a job. It's like, I applied to these jobs and I interviewed for the job, but I didn't get the job. Here are all the jobs that I applied for. Like, I don't know if I would brag about not getting jobs, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That was kind of my first thought. I will say the only difference that I can find in this particular thing is that I think when we look back at movies, we kind of fantasize about like, what if Kurt Russell was Han Solo? Mm-hmm. He didn't get the job either. It doesn't mean he was a failure. It just means they went that route. So it is kind of funny to she's saying, and the other thing about Hollywood too is like, yeah, a lot of people go out for a job. Like if a employer puts up a job, they might get, I don't know, 20 applicants or something like that. But sometimes in Hollywood, it's like, it's crazy and everybody's going for the parts and stuff, especially in big roles. Solo, they saw
3,000 people for Han Solo.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So for an actor to be like, yeah, I was one of the three that was in question or in competition for it, it doesn't really like throw me off. I mean, we have, like I said, a long history of like, well, this guy was gonna be Will Smith in The Matrix. But then he did Wild Wild West, and then Keanu Reeves took the part. You know what I mean? Like,
I think recently he brought that up and like said he regretted.
Oh, you have to regret that one, yeah.
I mean, there's tons of stories along those lines. Now, granted, this wasn't her being offered and she passed, but right. I think like, in a way, like kind of saying like that's just the way that it is. Like sometimes like when two like really awesome people come to you, who do you want to be in your movie, Stallone or Schwarzenegger? Well, guess what? Stallone doesn't get the job. It's not that he fails. It's like you just have to go with some of the best options. But it does make me wonder, John, because I think you're right. I think this was in the past. Like, are we talking Rey? Are we talking Kira?
So this
are we talking?
That's what makes me think.
Jyn Erso?
I don't know that it's Rey because I feel like out of the gate they wanted someone British for Rey, and I know people can do accents and stuff, but I think the preference there was to have someone from that region. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they wanted to do.
They saw a ton of people for Rey. Because
I also do think Abrams may have wanted Rey to be tied to Kenobi early on, but we won't get into that. But it could have been Rogue One. What's her name? Jyn Erso. It could have been Kira and Solo.
Yep.
Although the guy saying I auditioned for Solo, maybe she would have said I auditioned for Solo too. So I'm thinking maybe Jyn Erso. I could see Brie
Solo
Larson.
too.
Can you see Brie
What,
Larson
John?
doing a Jyn Erso? Yeah, Solo too. So I don't know. It's interesting, but it does definitely seem like, she's 30 now. So maybe she was in her early 20s auditioning for these roles in 2014, 2015. I know she's expressed interest in still doing something with Star Wars, but who knows?
She was at
with
Galaxy's Edge's opening.
Yeah, and she's posted photos with her with a lightsaber and that sort of thing. And I love how angry it makes some people for some reason. So I almost want her to be in Star Wars for that reason. But this whole thing, like, I know people, it's amazing. I always assume everyone can sniff out BS or like read the room and, they look into stuff. They're like, oh yeah. But it's amazing how many people will DM and send stuff and be like, hey, do you guys hear Brie Larson's going to be in Star Wars, or she's auditioning for Star Wars? I'm just like, I'm like, no, I don't want to have to explain this because then I sound like a snob explaining it. I'm just like, don't go to certain sites, or just look into things for like 5 seconds, ask questions.
Right.
Maybe it was the voice actress for Dr. Aphra.
What?
Brie Larson. She says, I auditioned for Star Wars.
I don't think so, but I would like to know more about that.
We'll talk about it at some point, right?
All right. Well, we'll get out. We'll start the Resistance report then. James, go ahead.
It's the Resistance.
Well, John, that's not even the first story on the list. I just thought it was funny that we're talking about casting a female character in Star Wars, right? The actual first story that I want to talk about today on the Resistance Report is, actually everything today has to do with books, right? It's a book day. So if you're a book reader in the Star Wars world, you're going to be happy about today's episode. First one up is The Mandalorian has officially announced a lot of upcoming books, and these are all things that we, I don't know, right, have been like speculating, like when are we going to get this book? But I'm going to pull it up here real quick. But we're talking, they announced an official visual dictionary, an Art of Mandalorian book, which I know Lacey's going to be pumped on. An original novel that's coming, and then a ton of other things for juniors and all sort of like learning books as well. But I think the three main ones that everybody's excited for is the visual dictionary, the novel, and the art of book. I'm going to start with you on this, John. What do you think about the what do they call that? The fashionably late entrance of all these books.
Well, I mean, it's funny, these art of books and these visual guides, which I don't know why they called this one a visual guide, not a visual dictionary, but it's going to be the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's Pablo Hidalgo, are so popular now with the modern era, and
these are guides. This one's a guide.
Yeah, so I don't know why some are called guide and some are called visual dictionary, but whatever. Okay. They are cash cows in terms of sales. These seem to be some of the best-selling Star Wars books out there. People like to understand more of the finer details and maybe things that aren't mentioned or shown on screen or explained on screen that they can find in here, concept art, all that stuff. And the fact that they have made the decision to do it for each season of The Mandalorian is just like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Because you're not buying season 1's art of and season 3. Star Wars fans like the collection. They're buying all 4 of them or all 5 of them. So that's quadruple the amount of the books you're going to sell for both of those sets, the Art of and the Visual Dictionary, let alone this original novelization by Adam Christopher. I don't know. I guess it's expected. It's cool. I'm curious because of the dates on this. The Art of is coming out December 15th, which is going to be well into the run, probably maybe already done with the run of season 2 of The Mandalorian, which means what's going to be in there that may have spoiled something that'd be in season 2. So we'll keep an eye out for that. The original novel's coming out December 1st. So again, is that at the end of The Mandalorian's run, which is starting in October? That's possible. So are there things in that novel that, again, would be maybe spoiled with season 2 stuff. So I think a lot of that comes into play in terms of the release dates, and that's why all the stuff is coming later. And then there's stuff coming in the spring too. They're doing comics with Marvel and IDW.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. So I know it's cool stuff. I like The Mandalorian. I'm curious to see how much Favreau was involved in overseeing and that sort of stuff, because this is his baby, and obviously Filoni is probably well entrenched into this sort of thing in terms of the lore and the connectivity with Pablo and the visual dictionary stuff. I'll probably pick up the I don't know, maybe the like visual guide or something like that. I'd have to see what the novel's all about. The only thing I will say, I hope that the original novel is not a prequel for The Mandalorian. I'm almost all set on origin stories. I know it's ironic because of my love for Solo, but I don't need to see like Mando being a kid and learning with Death Watch how to become a Mandalorian sort of thing. So I hope this is more of him as an adult, just what he was doing as a bounty hunter before he met the child, or even who knows what. But we will see in a few months.
Lacey, what do you think of this? What do you think of these books?
I'm surprised that they're coming out so late. You'd think that they would have paired this with The Mandalorian releasing last year, but I'm assuming it's because they didn't want to conflict with The Rise of Skywalker and everything else with Clone Wars, so they were waiting. But I am pumped about the art of The Mandalorian book. As soon as they announced that, I was like, yes! Because in the season, at the end of the episode, they do all the credits with the concept art. And I remember the first question we all had as Star Wars fans was, are you going to have a book with this art? Like, can we see this process? And they talk about it a little bit in the docuseries, the gallery series, about the process of developing characters like Baby Yoda and the look of certain things. But I don't know. I love these books. I collect them like crazy. I think the only one I don't have at this point is Solo, and it's because like these books are like $40 a pop, so it's like you have to like space it out. But I love them. I love these books. I love the art of Star Wars and concept art and the work that goes into it and the talent and basically the vision of someone like Doug Chiang, who just sees things differently. You know, they're like, oh, we need a ship. He's like, okay, give me 1 minute. And he like sketches a ship that you've never seen before. It's just like a talent that I wish I had, that I could never imagine having like that type of creativity and imagination. Like, yeah, I'm creative about some things, but like not like that. Not coming up with a new building or a landscape or a character or a robot. Like, it's just insane. And then, you know, a lot of these concept artists share their stuff on Instagram and on Twitter, and you're like, that's so cool. And they're like, here's 10 versions of BB-8 we came up with. And I'm like, how do you just like, let me just come up with 30 versions of this? You're like, what?
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for that book.
Do you wish you could go back and redo your question and answer patron question? Because you said it's a talent I wish I had or something like that.
Oh, yes. No, that would, you know what? I would like to. I said playing piano. I would love to be able to draw. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My younger sister is like an incredible artist. Like, I'm not just saying that. I know how some people are like, oh yeah, my mom is this and my sibling is really great. Like, I'm not kidding you. She's amazing. And she's been amazing her whole life because my mom decided at a young age to like put a pencil in her hand and be like, yes, learn how to draw. She didn't do it with me, but she did it with my sister. My little sister is so talented. And I wish and again, people are like, well, why not start now? I don't know. There's just like a mental block when you get older that you're like, I've lived my life. I don't know.
I agree with what you guys are saying. I think Lacey tends to lean towards the art of book, and I tend to lean toward the visual guides. I don't have any of the art. Actually, I do think I have like the Art of Last Jedi, but I have all the visual dictionaries because I just think that's the most interesting as far as like I think we've kind of talked about this before. Like, you guys lean, both of you actually lean like more on the history of Star Wars and the making of it and stuff like that. And I'm like, nah, I just want to know like the details of the lore and the characters and stuff. Right. So I tend to go into that a little bit more.
I have one visual dictionary, by the way, and I'm pretty sure it came out before The Force Awakens, so it's like an old school visual dictionary with like Yoda on the cover. I should probably take a look at it and see like what's in it, because it was given to me as a gift before The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
because there are visual dictionaries for like the prequels and stuff, like, but then those aren't canon anymore.
Well, the funny thing is I think the cover says like the complete Star Wars visual
Yeah.
dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
Nah, dog, it's not complete anymore.
Well, there's actually, I say I have every visual dictionary. I don't. I have every visual dictionary based on the movies, but they do still release like complete Star Wars visual dictionaries for the prequels and stuff to this day. And I'm like, dog, exactly what you said, Lacey. I'm like, I don't have 50, 80 bucks to drop every time the real complete dictionary, the for real complete dictionary is like comes out 3 months later.
I think if you took my bank account and took all the money I've spent on Star Wars related items in the past 4 years, I'd probably throw up if I looked at that number.
What, if you had to guess, would you say like $10,000?
More than that. Easily.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah.
So John, I have a question of you, because you've worked in publishing. The term original novel, does that mean that it is guaranteed that it is a new story that we have not heard, or is that an original like retelling from his perspective of season 1? Because that's how I took it.
Yeah, so this is going to be a new story because they're using a junior novelization for an adaptation. So that's going to be covering that, I think. You know how like they had those like kids versions of The Force Awakens, and you read it and it's like BB-8 and Rey and they're blah 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 with Tito. So this is going to be, an original story, almost like if you think of like a Phasma type of thing, whether it's before the events of season 1 or after. Like that's another thing too that we're going to talk about on Thursday. Like is season 1 and 2 going to have that time skip? Are we going to have this novel? Is it going to be like, this is what happened after season 1? You just finished watching season 2, find out what happened to get us there. Like Star Wars likes doing that stuff. The whole prequelitis thing, ever since the prequels came out, and other franchises have now adapted to that. Oh, let's go back now because we can, that actor's too old now, but we can recast and tell what happened before, and we can do this, and that's why these dates really do interest me, because this season is starting in October as opposed to season 1, which was November. If you do 8 episodes and you kick this thing off in mid to late October, this thing's finished by mid-December, early December, and that's when these books are coming out, which makes me wonder, like I said, are we getting things in any of this that would spoil events of season 2? Is the child's name all littered all over this stuff?
Is Ahsoka in the book?
The planet, Ahsoka. More about Moff Gideon. Does he have force powers, or what are we going to see in these things? So I think it's deliberate that they delayed them. I know people are like, why do it take so long? And they're probably like, Favreau's probably like, you're not putting that book out and ruining my show, my drama, my theater. Give it Christmas next year. Like,
Hasbro's like, you made us wait.
Yeah, exactly. So they're like, all right, well, Favreau said so.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely more interested in the book now with the understanding that it's going to be its own story. I'm just finding this out right now. I read that story and I go, original novel, okay, whatever. Because it's, I've read these novelizations of the books and I'm like, yeah, okay, they're interesting, a little more character development and other side things. But for the most part, I'm like, it's the same story. Like, what? You're not going to get anything extra really out of it. I'm interested now what they want to do with that. And
it was codenamed Sparrow. I don't know if that means anything, but he just said it was kind of a placeholder.
Probably not. There is a new update, and we were kind of teasing about this earlier, about the Sarah Kuhn novel that's coming out. I say novel, but it's like a novelization, so to speak, of the Dr. Aphra comic series that happened to the character during the original Vader run of comics when she was first introduced. If you don't know what this is, I say novelization, that's a bad way to put it, but they're writing the story, and then it's going to be an audiobook drama or an audiobook adaptation with a full cast of characters. We knew that was happening, but now we know officially the cast. And when you look at the cast, there's a lot of cool little insights, but the big one I think they were talking about was the process of coming up with the story when StarWars.com sat down with the author. And we know that Emily Wu Zeller is going to be playing the character of Aphra, along with a handful of other characters like Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, 000, Santa Staros, Maz Kanata, the Emperor, Leia Organa, and Darth Vader are all appearing in this book in one way or another. So, Lacey, I'm starting with you. Does the audiobook aspect of it intrigue you at all? Or do you just kind of lump this in with the rest of the books, like maybe not?
So the audiobook stuff does interest me. I do read audiobooks sometimes. So that's always exciting to just hear that they're getting like a full cast for these things. If you want to hire me, just let me know. But yeah, I'm not intrigued by this story. I'm going to be honest. Like, this isn't something that I'm like, oh yes, this specific character. I know her story, and I kind of like read summaries. I didn't read the actual series, but I know people love it. So per usual, glad you guys are getting what you want. Hopefully sometime they'll give a novelization or some type of audio drama of other characters that could be cool. Like, I could see this being a really cool opportunity for like a spin-off of The Mandalorian or something like that, where you could go on an adventure or something like that with characters from The Mandalorian, and then I already like The Mandalorian. I'm pumped to see Mark Thompson on here. He's like the best of the best. So anytime he's attached to something, I'm like, oh, this is legit. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know any of the other people. I'm just like, okay, that's cool. Excited for you.
I looked up the not the majority, but I looked up like a handful of them, and I believe that all of them are well-known audiobook speakers.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know what
cool.
the correct
yeah,
term
like
for
performers,
that.
yeah.
I did know that Jonathan Davis is another one that has read like in canon, current Disney canon novels as well, and he's read a number of them. In fact, I usually figure it's one of those two, either Jonathan Davis or Mark Thompson.
I always just assume it's Mark because he knows everything.
And that's fair.
And that's not Jonathan Davis, the lead singer of Korn.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest reasons that name always popped out to me is because it was like, I mean, I don't even know if this is the case, but it's like The Force Awakens, read to you by the lead singer of Korn, Jonathan Davis.
Like,
exactly. Like, she looked at Chewbacca and he said, "Bunata bola bala." That's like, all right. All right, John. Well, what's your thought on Jonathan Davis and others doing the Aphra audio?
So I haven't heard Mark Thompson's Vader in an audiobook yet. Has he done it yet? Did he do an audiobook for the Thrawn stuff, and did he do Vader?
I've only heard him do like the newest novels.
Mm-hmm. Off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer, but I could pretty much guarantee there's no way he hasn't ever done Vader.
So yeah, I'd have to. I mean, that's bad on me to have not looked it up, and people in the comments are gonna be like, "You should have looked it up" or whatever. But sorry. But it's like funny. Like, he's so good at these voices, and he does a great job. But it's not like you can tell. Oh, that's not Frank Oz's Yoda. That's Mark Thompson doing Yoda, and so on. His Han Solo and whatever.
He does a good older Han Solo.
Yeah, and. Yeah. You just have to say, like, oh, this is a caricature of the character in terms of the sound. He's not trying to be perfected. He does such a great job doing the array of characters. So when I hear his Vader, I can't be like annoyed that it's not James Earl Jones, you know? But I did look up a few of these other people. I mean, you had Emily Wu Zeller, who just was in The Last of Us 2, which is, I guess, a hot game topic right now for a lot of people. I see on Twitter and stuff, a lot of people talking about this game. Yep. She was a voice in the Pokemon animated series. Jonathan Davis, you said canon, James. He also was in Star Wars Old Republic, the 2011 game. He voiced Kendril in that. And Catherine Tabor as Leia, who was the voice of Padme in
Old Republic is not canon.
I said you said canon, but he also did the 2011.
Oh, oh, correct.
He was
okay.
saying like in addition to.
Yeah. Catherine Tabor as Leia, who was the voice of Padme for the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And she did Leia for the Force Unleashed games. So she is experienced doing Leia. So I don't know. It's cool. I'm not the biggest Aphra fan. I know it's, the Indiana Jones in Star Wars sort of thing. But I don't get into the comics very much. So I didn't really get to introduce myself to Aphra. From what and I'm also always concerned on how they handle Vader in these types of stories. Because I feel like more often than not, they weaken him, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with that. I know there's some where Vader absolutely crushes, but I think in sometimes they try to get too into his psyche where it diminishes the villain of Vader that I need him to be in that part of his life. And I don't know how I feel about his interactions with Aphra. For some reason, and I could be off the mark, it feels a little cartoony to me, but that is what it is. So I don't know if I'm going to get into this at all, but it sounds like they're doing a full-scale cast production, which is very cool. I did enjoy the first one they did, Jedi Lost with Dooku. I thought that was done well, even though some of it was a little pippy, a little potterish. But I think this is cool stuff. If I get in a situation where I'm going to be back driving again, I know a lot of people use these things for their commutes to work, and a lot of people are working from home now. So what does that do to that market? Are people going to be sitting around their houses listening to audiobooks? I don't know, but I'm sure they're taking that into consideration. I may dip into this, but it's not something I'm going to be like, oh, July 15th, here I am, July 21st, whenever it comes out, I'm there. So I don't know. You fired up?
Well, I will be.
Are you fired up for this, James? Are you excited for this story?
I was really excited about the audio drama for Dooku, but when I actually listened to it, it was harder to know what was going on in that book than a regular audiobook. So I thought it was cool, but it was very hard to follow, not just because Dooku in general is like a character that is difficult to kind of, wrap your head around, like his whole royalty and names and titles. And, at the different time they were introducing a bunch of new Jedi that you never knew before other than like Yoda, So it was kind of a hard story anyway, but I'm hoping this one is a little bit better. The only thing that bothers me about this is how unreliable narrator they're getting. So I feel like at the end of it, I know this story, but I don't know all the details. And all of the details are going to be like, well, I don't know. She might just be making all that up. So there's sort of a sense of like, it reminds me of when people say they don't like prequels because they know where the characters end, so they know that in any situation they can't die. They're just going to get out of this. So it like, I don't agree with that, but this is where I come in. I don't like it when a canon story is just at any point, no matter what anybody says, you could be like, they could just be lying. Or like, that just could be like their version of it, and none of it really mattered. Yeah. So them saying that as like one of the key points could be really intriguing to someone that says, I just want to go on a different story and I want to understand her perspective. I kind of find it annoying because I want to know like what happened and not like your version of what you think or would like to see happen. And I'm not talking about the author. I'm actually talking about Aphra and her retelling of the events. Other than that, I mean, I'm going to listen to it. We're probably going to do a book discussion on it at some point. So look forward to that. And I did look up all of Mark Thompson's books for you, John, and it's pretty funny. There's only one on this list that I'm like, I'm pretty sure Vader's in that one. But every other one is like A New Dawn, Heir to the Jedi, Dark Disciple, all the Aftermath books, Thrawn, not the sequel to Thrawn, the original Thrawn that probably doesn't have Vader in it. Novelization of Force Awakens, Canto, Bite, Last Shot, Solo, Dooku, Resistance Reborn, and then now Aphra.
He did
and it's
The
like
Last
all
Jedi,
of those
too.
are. Yeah, well, all of those are. Did he?
He did The Last Jedi novelization.
Oh, it's not on here.
That's weird.
Well, Vader was not in that anyway.
The only one that I think he would be is A New Hope's retelling, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy. He's obviously surely in that version at some point.
And I don't know if didn't they do an audiobook from a certain point of view? Because he did a showcase of it at New York Comic Con.
Yes, he did. I skipped over. Oh, that's a good point. I did skip over his the one that he read.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was like, it was like a short story or something. But yeah, you're right.
The other thing about the Aphra thing, which people may remember this, months back, there was a rumor that they were doing an Aphra live action show. And I was like, there's no chance they're doing a Dr. Aphra live action show for Disney Plus. There's just no way they're doing it. I wonder if that rumor came out of hearing whispers of a cast for Aphra.
Dr. Aphra casting.
And people took that info wherever they saw it posted and said, that means it's a show, because why else would there be casting? And that's how that rumor came about. So I think this right here almost debunks that. I never thought that was a legit thing when I saw that. I was like, live action Aphra show? I'm like, there's no way.
I mean, we're in a different world because I think most of the rumors are revolving around Mandalorian specifically, but also Boba Fett is listed there. So you see casting Boba Fett, you could get lost in that too.
Yeah.
Casting Santa Staros as well.
Yeah.
You know, gets tricky. But when this was first announced or first made official, I remember you made a point, maybe if it was just between us privately or on another show. But I think that has to ring true. That just makes so much sense that rumor came out of this thing that's happening. It just makes so much sense how that would be connected.
Yeah.
Last thing on the Resistance report this week is that J.W. Rinzler is going to be writing a new Star Wars book, and this one in particular is about the producer Howard Kazanjian. I said it right. All right. Which will feature Marcia Lucas. Now, he was talking about this book. He did kind of a live blog thing, and he was going into some of the details of how it became to be and some of the conversations that he had with her. But I think one of the headline ones is her opinions on the prequels and the sequels. So, I don't know, just talk a little bit about this. But this is obviously right up your alley. What did you think of this story?
I mean, I watched...
You wrote it.
So, it's funny. I watched his little webinar thing, and it just so funny because when he's on our podcast, he does similar things.
Yes.
He asks for a glass of water, and he's like, can I get a Kleenex? And he's doing his whole thing. I love Rinzler. But... him talking about how excited he was to be able to speak with Kazanjian and Marcia Lucas, because Marcia Lucas rarely does interviews, especially. She's not going to be... I mean, this book is about Howard Kazanjian, really. But Marcia Lucas, he interviewed her about it, and she's going to be involved. And I believe she might be writing the foreword for it. And... I put in our headline, the Marcia Lucas is giving her thoughts on the prequels and sequels and George Lucas, because that's very interesting to me, because she's one of the biggest reasons why Star Wars became a success. Her and John Williams, I would say, to her for her editing of the original trilogy, especially the first movie, which we've seen what a void she left with the prequels. They really could have used her editing, I think, for those films. We've talked about that on the podcast, but I think it's going to be a cool book because it's not Disney. So he can say what he needs to say. There's not going to be any, you better shut up and protect this brand. He can get into things a bit. And I'm sure people of the old guard may not care too much about letting truths about the franchise and what has gone on come out, which brings me to the interest of what Marcia Lucas may think of the prequels. And she said nice things about George Lucas. Obviously they got divorced in the 80s, but also the current slate of movies, because George Lucas kind of got zipped up about that. They told Mark Hamill to shut his mouth about it. Rinzler got let go 4 years ago, and he had a whole blog about stuff that he took down, but now it's kind of like we get to hear from Marcia Lucas, and that's pretty interesting to me. That's like when you hear one of the Beatles talking about what really happened with the band or whatever. So that excites me. I'm curious to see how much she's in it, but I believe the book's coming out next spring. He had told me, actually, And he may come back. Maybe we should have him come back to talk about that book in the future. But always love Rinzler stuff. Obviously, his making of books. We've had him on the podcast. His stories are unbelievable. So there's no one better to retract this information and deliver it in a way for people to absorb it. So I'm very, very excited to get this vantage point.
Yep. Lacey, what do you think?
I think that Rinzler is a great storyteller, and every time he's been on our podcast, he's given us stories that no one's ever heard and tidbits that you want to hear from the time when George Lucas was, heading up Lucasfilm. Because, growing up and watching these movies, I didn't really get into the drama, and I don't think it was as out there as it is now, of inner workings of companies as it is now with the internet and social media and stuff. So we hear kind of all of those behind the scenes conversations and random comments made by this person from productions, and this is going terribly wrong. So you can't help but wonder, is it all productions or just currently? So when you hear they had to go back and reshoot things when the movie came out for Empire Strikes Back, and they had to do this, and George had a certain way of doing this, it kind of levels it to, it's not one movie or the other, it's just all productions. And it's just really interesting to hear. I kind of view it as, even though Disney took Star Wars to a whole new level and gave us such wonderful content, it's kind of still interesting to hear about Lucasfilm coming up in its production and its popularity, and then kind of in this heyday golden era that I feel like everybody references to then, oh, well, Disney bought it. It's the Disney kind of cutoff is where it was before the dark times of Disney. So it's interesting to hear these stories from someone that worked there, that worked directly with George, and to hear that he spoke with Marcia is just super interesting because she saved Star Wars. So I value her judgment from a video perspective, from video production's perspective. She won the Oscar. She did all these things. I want to know what she thinks of the new movies. From a production side, did she like the editing? Did she not like the editing? Did she like the story? What could they have done better? I want to hear that, not from the side of, let me make 10 YouTube videos about it because it's so critical and awesome and Disney sucks. More of a, what does she know that I can learn from based on what I've already seen? And I love that kind of stuff. So I hope that she goes into it a little bit of, oh yeah, no, they're great, but here's what I would have done differently from my own perspective. Because people seem to forget that being a film editor, video editor, any type of editor is really an art, because you have to decide how long shots hang, what shot to cut to, how, you can change the feel of a scene and the emotion and everything about a movie, whether it's successful or not, on the editing. And it's just so important. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read the segment, and she's like, it was perfect. It was one of those things, I wish I did it myself.
Right.
Yeah.
She just has absolutely zero criticisms.
I don't think
of
so.
it all.
From what it seems like, she voices her opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting too, because it could just be as much as real as we want to be well, it's her opinion, and she is really good at what she does, so it's interesting to hear her point of view. It's one of those things where you're gonna see all the YouTube videos and the criticisms of hey, the person who edited the good Star Wars is now being open about all the problems, and it's she could give a huge list of things that she liked and things that maybe she would have liked to do differently, but I'm not entirely positive how in-depth this is going to be. Sure. I think it's going to be one of those things where, what you cannot expect is I don't think she would be well, I think the Canto Bite scene was good, but you probably would have removed this scene and this scene, or moved them to the end, because
I'm thinking of it more as when editors of The Rise of Skywalker spoke on a podcast about the story in the Rise of Skywalker compared to The Last Jedi, and their critiques were that they had a challenge to pick up the story that was left from The Last Jedi, and that's how they handled their editing, and that's the style they had to play off of. Like, that to me is more of a critique, but also a perspective than this is bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, I really don't think she's going to be a big part of this book.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, Kazanjian was one of those guys that Lucas met early on, as Rinzler's talked about in that video, and I guess Lucas wanted to keep courting him to get more involved in Lucasfilm, and his first job was more American Graffiti, the sequel to American Graffiti in like 79, and then he went on to help produce Empire, Raiders of the Lost Ark, did he do Return of the Jedi, and that documentary From Star Wars to Jedi, like that first big Star Wars documentary that came out in the 80s before Empire of Dreams. He produced that. So I think his stories being a part of producing the original era of Star Wars after the first movie. So when it was big game, like Star Wars was big time, he comes in and does that. And maybe his stories working with George Lucas in that time, because anytime you hear a new story about George Lucas, I always am just like, wow, like George Lucas is like big fish to me. Like I'm not calling him a liar, but he definitely has versions of his life and his stories. Like we said when we had Rinzler on, if you had 5 George Lucases from each decade at a table, would they get along or would they argue with each other? And he's like, oh, they would argue all the time. And I'd be curious to hear now from this vantage point from one of the OG, longtime original producers, Howard Kazanjian, what George Lucas stories he has, because Rinzler got those out of him too, and then used his own experience working with George to kind of like maybe connect some dots to help us paint a picture of what Lucas was really like back then. Because like I say, I really feel like George Lucas changes his revisions his own history in addition to revising his movies.
Yeah,
but I'm excited for it. I really am.
Yeah, I think you're right on the fact that she's, one, probably not going to be in it that much, and then two, like totally sidestepping. You know what I mean? Like, let me ask you, would you think of that Smurfs movie? It's like what am I here for? I thought I was talking about something completely different.
I agree.
But now all of a sudden we're sidetracked.
I agree completely with what Lacey said though about Marcia Lucas, in terms of you have that person who saved Star Wars, like you said, won the Oscar, and her take, regardless of how big or small, I agree completely. It's going to be huge.
So Lacey, I think it was you that told me about the YouTube. There's a YouTube video that somebody put together that was like how Star Wars was saved in the edit or whatever.
Such a good telling if you have time to go watch it. It goes from like the moment that Spielberg saw it for the first time and was like, what is this? to like basically how they fixed it.
Without the music, right? You didn't even hear it with...
Yeah, it was him and Coppola. And Coppola was like, this is trash.
It's crazy.
That's amazing.
But the way they animated it, it was like a picture of him with like the mouth moving, being like, this is trash.
Yeah.
It was really well done.
Have you guys ever seen or heard the story about the bet between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg on Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
No.
Now I feel like it's going to be weird. I'm probably retelling the story wrong. So if you do know the actual story, put it in the comments. But I heard that there was like a bet that they made that one was like, dude, Star Wars is going to be way bigger than my movie. And the other one, and Lucas was like, no way, man. Like, I'm doing this thing, but like Close Encounters is going to be so huge. It's going to be way bigger. And they made the bet. And then I think like still today, because Spielberg won that bet and Star Wars was bigger, he still gets like some sort of percentage of royalties from something because that was the agreement. But
like he needs more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, neither one of them need more money. It's a bet between themselves.
I was watching the new. So growing up, I watched Roswell on WB. Like, I loved that show,
Yeah.
and they recently redid it because nowadays they're redoing everything that was good. To be fair, it's also very good. It's a very good show. But at the end, it says Amblin Entertainment, and I was like, Spielberg, of course, aliens. Right. He has something to do with it, of course.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But it caught me off guard.
That's interesting.
I forgot about that show, Roswell. Who
It's
was in that
good.
show?
Yeah, I kind of did too. I never
Shirley
watched it, but I
Appleby
remember
was in
it being
the
on.
first one. She was in the original, but the new one is like completely different from
Shirley Appleby?
Appleby. Yeah, I think that's what her name is. She was in Girls and that really crazy scene with Adam Driver that everybody talks about.
I didn't see Girls. I don't like Lena Dunham, so I don't.
Oh, she's in like the infamous Adam Driver scene. Shirley Appleby.
I can only imagine.
And people know what I'm talking about. The infamous scene that everyone talks about with Adam Driver. That when he got hired as Kylo Ren, everyone went, that guy? You're going to go with that guy? Now everyone's going to go, I need to go Google this.
Yeah, I have no clue what you're talking about.
You might want to avoid it.
The one thing I do know is that is the end of the Resistance report this week. And Lacey is up next. Lacey, because you're going to take us into the next section, which is called...
The Patreon Pod Race. Yeah. All right, guys. There are plenty of ways you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're growing all the time. Please support us. Thank you. And then also follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Or if you want more content, including like 8+ mini episodes, mailings, we give you exclusive news first. Like if we have special guests, we do Q&As, we put you in the show, etc. We have a Patreon page, and that's at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast, starting at $2 a month. As you go up in the tiers, you get more access and more benefits. It's a super fun thing, and the community there is just really, really great. So if you need a break from like the craziness of internet, but like still want to talk Star Wars and have fun, our Patreon page is a great place to start. All right. So first of all, before we get into this segment completely, I want to say thank you to our highest tier generals. And that would be Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, Bethany, Russ Harbison, making sure I got your name right, Russ, and Kendall Gelnar. Thank you guys so much for being generals and supporting us. And as you guys know, this segment, we let the generals be a part of the show. We ask them a Star Wars question. They give us an answer. We react to it. They get to be a part of the show. And we appreciate their support. So this week, we have General Jeremy, and we asked him, are you concerned that the appearances by characters like Ahsoka could take the spotlight away from Din Djarin in The Mandalorian? So that would be The Mandalorian in The Mandalorian. So Jeremy, take it away.
Hey guys, what's going on? So this was a great question for me because I love both characters. So it's hard to know if I feel like Ahsoka would be stealing the thunder or not. But honestly, I don't care. I love Ahsoka. I am ecstatic that she is in The Mandalorian this season, or allegedly, or we'll see, I guess. I think Mando is going to carry the season regardless. You got the child that's going to steal his thunder anyways, and already has. I mean, mainly last season was all about the child in the end. But I had big plans to use my Ahsoka lightsaber somehow for this and show my excitement that way. But here I am stuck at a train, giving my thoughts, sharing my answer. But yeah, I'm excited. Ahsoka's going to be in it. I don't think she'll steal from Mando, and hope you're all well, and can't wait to chat with you guys soon. General Jeremy out.
Well done, Jeremy. Even though you didn't get to use your Ahsoka lightsabers, and make it. I feel like every week the generals are trying to one up the one before them and like theatrics and edits and
Yeah.
But next time you can do something really cool. We appreciate you taking the time out of the crazy day to be on the show. That being said, great answer. I completely agree, but I'm going to go to John first. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're a big Ahsoka fan, so I was curious how you were going to handle this one. And, you make great points. If The Mandalorian still stands tall heading into season 2 after Baby Yoda Mania, then an appearance by Ahsoka or whoever shouldn't take too much away from him. So you make great points there. And like you said, even if Ahsoka does, Ahsoka fan like you will love it. So, but no, yeah, great points. Again, great job with the pod race. Thank you for wishing us well. I hope you're doing well with the baby and the family, and everyone's doing well and healthy out there. I know California is getting a bit nutty again, so hope you're all safe and well and staying out of the heat as much as you can. But way to bring it once again with a great pod race, bud. Thanks, Jeremy.
James?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because I understand that perspective of like, I don't think the character is going to, but if it did, then that's fine. Because Ahsoka as a character is like one of the most flushed out characters ever in Star Wars.
You don't say.
So it's
She's
like,
an everything.
It's one thing. I know it's weird to say like to make this comparison, but it's like, if they were bringing Darth Vader or the Emperor or Obi-Wan Kenobi into the show, you'd be like, well, that's different because you're bringing in like a movie character and it's like a big deal. But like I said, Ahsoka's had like, she's one of the most, like most of her life has been told, it's like we know every aspect of it and we've watched it over and over and over again. So to the people who have done that, she's a mainline character. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think that, she could very well pull a little bit too much away, but I have full faith that they'll handle it properly. But I'm with you, Jeremy, though. Like either way, to me as a Star Wars fan, where I'm at, like, yeah, I could go either way. The show could go and lean into Ahsoka a lot, or they could just have her as a little bit and stay on that Mandalorian route. I'm down either way.
Awesome. Jeremy, I loved your answer. I love that you love Ahsoka so much. Because, like, I get excited when other people are like, yes, of course I want this. I also laughed a little bit where you were like, Baby Yoda took over. He absolutely did. And the show should be called Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian because I feel like that's all people got out of it at this point. But hopefully, like you said, it'll calm down a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to head over to John, and we're going to hear from more of you guys with Ask the Resistance. John?
All right, question time. Whose question got picked? That's the question.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
I have the answers. So yeah, we're gonna run through your questions right now. Lacey's gonna go first. Keith Miller, you are on the show. Thank you for your question. K Miller NC on Twitter. Whenever the pandemic reopens and Disney can reopen, besides Rise of Resistance, what is the thing you want to do or get the most out of at Galaxy's Edge? Also, based on what you know, what is one thing you hope they do better with? Lacey, what do you think about this one?
Hey, Keith. Thanks for your question. So sadly, I have not been to Galaxy's Edge yet. And the first thing that people do when I say that is they're like, what? How? That's a really good question, guys. It's basically that I had plans to go this spring or to go this summer or to go, I don't know, anytime during this pandemic. And it has kept me from doing it. Yeah, it was just one of those things that then it turned into, oh, we're going to all go together at Celebration. It's going to be great because John hasn't gone and I haven't gone, so we'll all get to experience it together. And it just didn't happen. So the hope is, yes, like you said, when all this craziness dies down and gets back to normal a little bit, which we don't know when that's going to be, but I would love to make the trip to Galaxy's Edge. I'll probably start with the one in Florida because it's closer to me. I'm on the East Coast, but I really want to try blue milk and green milk, like really bad. And I want to ride the rides. I want to go on Rise of the Resistance, and just like take everything in and take a ton of pictures so I can post about it like 3 years from now and be like, remember that time that I went there? And everyone's like, Lacey, we get it. Stop. Like, that's what I want to do. But what I do want to say is I have high functioning anxiety. So every time I see when people talk about how you have to be at a certain place and get a certain boarding pass and like have to be there at a certain time to get a ticket to go on these rides, and like there's all these reservations you have to make about a certain, like, it just gives me so much anxiety that I'm hoping by the time that I get there that Disney has sorted that out, because all I ever hear about is how bad it is and how rough it is to get to experience those things, because there only is, 2 rides, the one cantina that you have to have a reservation for, the lightsaber building, which you have to have a reservation for. Like, it's just nuts, which I get because it's a new part of the park. But I'm just hoping by the time, whenever it happens that I get there, that it'll be a little bit easier for me to do what I want to do. And take all the photos so you guys can be angry 3 years from now when I'm still posting them.
Lacey, when I went, just to give you a little bit of like resolve here.
Oh, it won't happen. Whatever you say right now is never gonna.
Well, sure. But it was day 2 of them opening up, and I did have a reservation for Oga's. But when I got there, I was like, is it cool if I bring in another person and also my son? So it was like tripling my reservation, and they were like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but you have to get the reservation.
No big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand, but that was day 2 and I still got it. So think about that for a second.
Tickets. Like, I almost cried.
That's true. We were about to record one time, and like solo tickets went on sale, and Lacey was like losing her mind.
No, it was Rise of Skywalker.
No, it was solo first.
I think I want to say it was solo.
It was
too.
everything, guys. I'm not lying.
Solo
like,
too.
what row? What row? What row do you want to be in?
Tell me what row. And then I had to get hotels for Celebration, and then the whole ticket buying was this whole. Guys, I'm the worst.
I'm just glad you do it, because I would be. You get it done at least. I would have the anxiety and like screw it up.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right. Well done. Good answer. James, this one's going to you. This is from Kevin Lewis at Thrawn Zahn Fan. So I wonder what he likes.
Keith and Kevin.
I wonder what this question's going to be about. It's about Jar Jar Binks. No. Kevin asked, who would you cast to play a live-action Thrawn, James, and why?
So this is a loaded question, because no matter what I say, there's not going to be anybody that's like, oh, that's the perfect casting. I love it. It's always going to be either okay or no. I took a little bit of time and tried to figure this out. The first name that I popped up with, I was less happy with when I came up with the second name, which I still don't even think is that great, but I landed on Jude Law. Anybody feeling that?
So not Pierce Brosnan from The Banner?
Well, I knew that was going to get discussed no matter what, whether it's in the comments or just like from you guys, because I think when we saw that picture, it was like, oh, it looks like he already has been cast.
The best is when we were standing there. It was like day before it opened, like 2 days before or day before. Mm-hmm. They were still putting it on the whole thing, and they were about to raise it up, and we're standing there, and we all were like, all the fans that were there, it was like 20 people were all like, is that Pierce Brosnan? And then like the Lucasfilm people were there, and they were like, it does look like that.
Yeah, it looks like him. Yeah.
Jude Law? Are you asking us what we think?
Well, I mean, that's fine if you guys want to pop in, but the reason I was looking at him was I was trying to look for a character that I thought had the same kind of like thought process a little bit, and then also kind of like that general facial structure. Like, obviously, even if you did Seth Rogen clean shaved or whatever. He's just not ever going to look like what you're anticipating. And I'm like, I don't know. I even like did a Photoshop, I painted his skin blue in a little bit. I'm like, I feel like it could be believable. So that, I don't know. It's probably a bad casting, but that's who I kind of landed on. Is the best I could probably do.
Talk about extra credit. You actually made his skin blue.
Now you have to post it.
Well, I went in with the red eyes too. No, I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it looks like AMS painted it. T-shirt. T-shirt. Yeah, you don't want that.
Dude,
photo.
Seth Rogen would be a great boss nass.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. All right. Good answer. What do you guys think of Jude Law? Leave in the comments whether you agree with James or Jeff P. Skywalker at RIP Bert Convey. Sorry, Bert. Jeez. Why do people believe rumors from garbage websites? I'll take this one.
It's like you picked these questions, John.
Yeah.
So the first problem is people, other sites who may not be garbage sites report on the rumors. And then because they know they'll get the clicks from them too. So then people say, oh, well, if blank is reporting it, then maybe it's true. And then all it takes is one of those to do it, and then the rest will follow suit. So then you have all these mainstream sites who may have better reputations than the garbage websites, as you put it, reporting the rumor. And then it gets into the eyes of the casual fan, the fringe fans, the fans who are diehard fans, but they don't look too deep under the surface for truth. And that's when the wildfire starts. Then you have another group of people who like talking about how bad the garbage sites are, and they cite them and they say, don't follow this website, tagged by this person, written by this person on this date. And what are you doing? You're giving them free advertisement by saying don't do something. So the people complaining about the garbage sites and the garbage rumors add more eyeballs and more attention to the rumors themselves than the actual reporting. It's like back in the day when Howard Stern got big because most of his audience were people that hated him and they wanted to hear what he said next. It's kind of like this too. You know, people who hate these fake YouTubers or these fake news websites who make stuff up talk about it more than the actual reports themselves, and it just spirals and snowballs and explodes, and that's where you get stuff trending like they're canceling the Star Wars sequel trilogy and stuff like that. So my advice is literally ignore it. Don't share it. Don't say this is dumb and share it to people. Just completely ignore it. And the best way to put out a fire is to suck away its oxygen. And how you do that is by suffocating it and by not acknowledging it or talking about it. And just doing a little bit of brief research. I talked about this on the Rumor and Theory review, which I'm sorry I haven't done those in a little while. But just go the extra step. Like, look into things a little bit. Or use common sense and logic. How would that make sense for them to cancel the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which made over $5 billion? Come on, guys. So a lot of times we can figure this stuff out on our own, but the best thing I would advise is to sites to not share those rumors if they're absolutely made up, and for people to not talk about garbage websites and stuff on their social medias and that sort of thing, because you're giving those people attention and traffic. So that would help that. So thank you, Jeff. Last one, guys, quickly. Mike Sellers at Puck32 Ellers said there are a lot of rumors of who will be in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Are you taking the over or under on 3.5 as to how many characters from old Star Wars shows or movies that will make their appearance or debut in Mandalorian season 2? So over or under 3.5. James?
Under. For sure. Although I don't know how you'd have to have 4, right?
Over's 4, under's 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely going under. I think they're gonna.
So 3 or less. Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Lacey, is it going to be an under for you, or is it going to be a melee of Star Wars characters in Mando?
I'm just thinking of Super Smash Brothers, where it's like choose your character.
Yeah.
No, under.
Link.
Yeah,
under.
Yeah.
So we're thinking like Ahsoka and maybe like 1 or 2 others max.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that too. It's already a loaded cast as it is. There's a lot of stuff to be done with that. So I'm gonna say the under 2. Mike, let us know what you think. We all took the under. Did you take the over? We'll find out. Everyone else in the comments too, leave a comment what you think. But that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you to everyone who submitted those questions. Keep them coming. On Twitter at RBATSWNN, or anytime you want to just send anything out. Use hashtag AskTheResistance. We'll find it, and we'll get you on the show and talk about it, discuss it, and hopefully give you an answer that you dig. If you're shy, you can email us at resistancebroadcast@gmail.com with questions too. Make sure you do subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, any audio platform that you take in your podcast. We're there. So subscribe because we have 2 episodes every week, every Monday and Thursday. And then we'll be back this fall with the Mando Fan Show on Friday and a bunch of other good stuff down the line too. StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news and reviews, editorials, all that good stuff. Teespring.com/store/Resistance Broadcast. We have a bunch of great stuff on there for you guys, including, like we talked about last week, our new revised Gary the Porg design is up there. We'll be posting some cool pictures to showcase that to you guys, and make Solo 2 happen, of course. I don't know if Sheevy Babes is on there or not, but a lot of cool designs, most of them made by James over there. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com. James, where you at?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Myra Trunks.
Right on, man. Lacey?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, wishing I was at Galaxy's Edge.
Me too. Yeah.
At DJ Rex.
Yeah. So you guys can find us on Thursday, though, with another episode. We're going to be talking about time skips in Star Wars and whether the first Star Wars TV show, The Mandalorian, will be employing that as we head into season 2. So that and more fun on Thursday. Hope everyone's well. Enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you in a few days right here on the Resistance Broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.